and this is Tuesday, September 15th at 6 p.m. We did a roll call. We have 3 board members currently, and that is a quorum to have a meeting. And for the adoption of the agenda, Dr. Forrest, is there any changes to the agenda?
No, Madam President, it's just the one item agenda tonight.
Okay. So we will go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please make sure you are muted, and when we get the flag, I'll go ahead and start it. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Madam President,
All
if I
right.
may,
Yes.
I didn't quite catch you fast enough, but we do need to have an adoption of the agenda this evening.
Oh, I did ask about it, but then we didn't vote on it. Okay.
I move to adopt
okay.
the agenda.
Thank you, Brian.
I'll second that.
John. Thank you, Brian. Okay, so we have a motion to pass the adoption of the agenda by John Paff, second by Brian Swanson. Roll call, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That passes 3-0. Okay, now we are on to our one item for tonight, which is the resolution 1060 opposing rescission, I'm not saying that right, of the Pacific Grove moratorium on marijuana sale and distribution. Dr. Porce, do you want to give any kind of introduction to this, or do you want to just go ahead and talk about the resolution?
Well, we will be prepared to post the resolution here so everyone can see it on the screen in just a moment.
Okay.
This item was requested by the board who brought forward, and we tried to time it so that we could do it before the city council's decision, which is tomorrow evening, in regards to rescinding the moratorium on marijuana sales and distribution here in town. As you will recall and is noted in the resolution, this has been a similar position that the school district has been in before, staff members, including myself and Safety Director Barbara Martinez, have represented the board and the district at city council meetings in the past to voice opposition for any dispensaries within the city limits, mostly and predominantly for safety concerns of our students. It's really mostly about an issue of access of marijuana and other drugs to students here in this very small knit town. There are very few places in the town that a dispensary could open that wouldn't have a close proximity to one of our schools. And I think one of the items that was listed is a timing. Certainly this is also a difficult time in our history to have this here, as we have pretty much all of our students off campus. It's more difficult for us to be able to kind of present a safe school environment for them when they're not on our campuses. Especially for students who are older, they'll be perhaps not even at home. A lot of what ifs, but certainly the biggest issue for us was that the city had at one time deemed the dispensaries in town not worth the risk in regards to finances, and certainly had voted against having any commercial cannabis activity in town. That was 2017. In December, the city council voted this past year, 2019, voted to table the item for the dispensary pending further information that would be presented to the public. And while we didn't get a chance to review that previous to the city council meeting that just happened, we were able to be present at that meeting online to again present the school district's opposition to having a dispensary in town. We are speaking entirely on behalf of our students in this case, certainly not trying to make a value judgment on the need of a dispensary for those who are not, the citizens who are not in our school district, but we are concerned about our students and their well-being. So this resolution is being brought to you on behalf of the board for your discussion. And I think everyone it's been public, so people have had a chance to review it. And the board is more than welcome to add or delete, change, modify, and pass and adopt this resolution as you all see fit. So staff is here certainly to answer any questions. But Madam President, at this point, I think it's yours. And if you need it posted, I think that Coordinator Makia is ready to post when you're ready.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for that summary. Board, I think what I'd like to do is just, as we do most agenda items, is kind of just discuss it, each board member, and then we'll open it up to public. You guys, anybody that's participating that has public comment for this item, feel free to raise your hand at any time. You'll be in the queue, and it will take your question, comment as your turn comes up. So if you don't know already, click on the middle of your screen on the bottom, and participants, you should be able to raise your hand from there. So board, I think I'll go ahead, just start with John Path. Would you like to have any comments or concerns about this?
Sure. Yeah. Resolution. Generally, I believe that Dr. Porras was accurate in his assessment. We have a subset of the citizenry of Pacific Grove, and our particular subset, let's say 14 to 20 or 14 to 18, that range is far more susceptible to, to forming lifelong bad habits. This is not to say someone at 70 to 80 who's using medical marijuana to help out with whatever they might need that. Arthritis comes to mind. I'm not trying to put that down, but more specifically, our particular age group, it's problematic. And two items in particular seem problematic to me. One is the that cannabis shops tend to sell. I don't know who that was. Tend to sell vape products, and we definitely know that vaping is an issue in high schools and middle schools. And they also sell edibles, which have an unfortunate circumstance that you can find yourself in a position where someone has tried something with varying degrees of, effectiveness of carrying THC, etc. And these are problems in the schools. That's not, again, I think Ralph had it right. There's no judgment on adults, but when we actually come down to the high school and the middle school, this is a problem. With this particular resolution, in fact, I actually would like to take out two paragraphs that say City Council ignores health, safety, and well-being of the city, and be it further resolved and ordered, the board objects to the disregard for health, safety, and well-being, because I believe the City Council is trying to balance a far larger group than we are. If we were only talking about the high school students, that, we could make that statement, but because they're actually trying to consider everyone, and we would like an emphasis on our students, I don't think they're in disregard. I think that they are trying to, come to some nominal moderate position. But for us in particular, it's important that we say, look, this is not good for high school and middle school students. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, John. So just to make sure for the discussion, the two paragraphs that you'd like to take out are towards the bottom, the third and the second from the last paragraph from the bottom on the first page. Is that correct? Whereas although the City Council?
That's correct. I think that City Council is trying very hard to balance the needs of the entire entire citizenry. But for us in particular, that's harder. That's a harder sell because our particular domain really is where it's going to be problematic is again in that middle school and high school domain. And similarly, the second to last paragraph, I think the resolution stands without them both, and I think is very effective without them. So.
Yeah, because the board is making a direct comment towards the end. Okay. Thank you, John. Okay. Before I go to Brian, I do want to make sure that I mention Gabby. I notice you're here, so thank you for joining us, and I will come to you after Brian. So if you have anything to share. So Brian, you're up. Did you have any additional comments?
A couple of things, and some of these were just related to the structure of the document and the wording, really, that I think some of us have caught already, but at the very beginning, I think there's just an error. And I think Dr. Porras already had caught that one where it says just whereas 10 years, comma, I think it was intended to be 10 years ago.
Yeah, I wrote that too.
So there was that. There was another one that I had already sent to Dr. Porras, and I don't remember offhand where that one was. My concern again is about the students, and that's what our concern always is when it comes to the board, is about the students and the young people of Pacific Grove. And we did just recently, the city passed a ban on vaping products, and I don't know what the intention is of the dispensary and what they might sell, but we just went through a big thing about making sure that we didn't have that sold in the city, and now we're coming back to this. So I have concerns about that. And I've said this before to some people who have asked, but I'm going to repeat it here too. It's like, I think there is a real difference. And, some of I work in the entertainment industry, so I'm no stranger to people who use often copious amounts of drugs and alcohol. And it's just, we're a small town. It's different in larger towns where you can spread things out, but Pacific Grove is not like that. We're very unique in that regard, and I have concerns about just where something like this might go without directly impacting and crossing paths with our students. I did also just take a moment earlier today to take a look at, one of the other dispensaries. We talk about who some of these products are being marketed to. I'm looking at the Monterey dispensary website right now, and some of the products that they have are apple gelato and blueberry lemon and bubblegum kush. So I think I'm just going to leave it at that. So I throw in birthday cake and chocolate chip cookie and cinnamon and sugar. So
a couple questions for you, Brian. Was that, you said Monterey or Seaside?
Yeah, that's Monterey Bay Alternative Medicine.
Okay. And then how do you feel about the two paragraphs that John mentioned?
I'm fine with removing those. I don't see that as being a big deal. If it makes everybody more comfortable with those being taken away, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, Gabby, I know you're with me or with us. If you'd like to say anything, you're welcome to.
I don't have too much to say on the issue. I feel like everyone's pretty much said it all, but I agree. I think it would be in the best interest of the student body in general not to allow the dispensaries in Pacific Grove, because any adults who do need access to such products can do so in dispensaries in other cities or areas. And especially in regards to the vaping devices, that's been an issue at the high school that we focused on, particularly this past year. We were doing a culture change project to reduce the amount of vaping in school and just in general. So I agree that having these dispensaries here in Pacific Grove would probably worsen that issue, which we definitely don't need.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so for me, that is one of the biggest issues also, that not only what Gabby mentioned, what the high school has been doing, we as a board have been wanting to promote, not allowing these sales of vaping, which all leads back to what John said about, you know, the dispensaries selling these items as well. It's not just about marijuana, in my opinion. We also are on the list of this statewide lawsuit against vaping companies that are marketing towards students. So I think as the board, I think we are doing the right thing by making this statement to the city. And I am okay with that as well, removing those two paragraphs. I just want to read two before and one after just to make sure it makes sense. So whereas on November 15th, 2017, the City Council unanimously reaffirmed its commitment to the City of Pacific Grove, voting to maintain the prohibitions against commercial cannabis activities and medicinal cannabis dispensaries. Whereas on September 2nd, 2020, the City Council, by a bare majority vote, it was 3-4, by the way, voted to approve rescission of its prohibition against marijuana dispensaries within the city limits and allow one cannabis store. The proposal was for 2. And whereas the American Lung Association warns against smoking cannabis during the pandemic because it can exacerbate the effects of COVID-19, and then it continues on. I think that makes sense to me. Okay, so now we will go ahead and look for public comment. If there's any, Mr. Mejia, would you mind going back to the grid so we can see if there's, thank you for public comment time. So first up is Sean Keller.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm just really sharing comments based on my time spent at the high school for 18 years as a teacher, as a coach, activities director, and administrator. And on this topic of having a dispensary in Pacific Grove, I just know from dealing with suspensions at the high school, and as you know, with the statistics I would provide to you each year, the use of marijuana was the #1 reason for students to be suspended at the high school. So I would say it was the #1 issue we had in dealing with discipline at the high school during the 5 years that I was the assistant principal. The one thing that I would just like to share with the public was a brief moment that I had with a father. And it's because a lot of people in our society like to minimize the use of marijuana, much like the use of other, drinking, your use or wine. But it was with a Navy commander of a ship whose son was having difficulties in his use with marijuana. And the scene in my office was just so very sad. And that here was a man that was in command of thousands of people for armed forces on a ship. And he was bawling and crawled up like a baby in the corner of my office when he couldn't help his son with his use of marijuana. And I've always told that story to my boys. And again, it's the factor of their age and how their brain hasn't developed yet. Obviously, the citizens of California have felt that marijuana should be legalized, and that was their right to vote for that. But I'll just warn you, as an administrator in your town for many years now, that marijuana has affected our youth, and I do not recommend having a dispensary in Pacific Grove.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. That's very great insight. We do have more public comment, but I will just touch briefly that I thank you for bringing that story up, because I wasn't going to share, but I will share that part of my experiences. I personally had that with my child in Pacific Grove, and it was really difficult. And I just don't think that we're doing a service to the students if we just make it easier. Okay, back to public comment. L. Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi there. This is Steve and Lisa Thomas, and I 100% support the board's resolution in advocating against allowing a dispensary in Pacific Grove. I'm a business owner in downtown, and my wife and her sister are former business owners. And the way that things are setting up right now is the only place that this dispensary is going to be going is in downtown. And if you notice throughout the Monterey Peninsula, many of these cities have been very careful about where they're putting it. People love to say, oh, Carmel has a dispensary, but yet it's not in downtown. And the way that the second ordinance has been crafted is it is very interesting in the sense that it separates from schools, but it allows the dispensary with just over 200 feet from childcare facilities. And it does not bring into account the number of children serving services that are in downtown. So, point number one. Point number two is Pacific Grove's 2.25 miles in diameter. And that's just too small of an area, given the spread of our schools, to be able to have a dispensary any sort of acceptable distance away from them. Whether or not you agree or disagree with the medicinal or recreational benefits of marijuana is separate from the fact that this entire process is being rushed through, and the city council is not even taking into account the experts that testified at the first ordinance, nor are they taking into account any of the many, many letters, emails, and telephone calls that have gone into the city council. Finally, they're utilizing a survey from 2017, which is misleading at best. So when you hear the term 69% of Pacific Grove residents agree with having a marijuana dispensary, that's not true. The survey itself says there are 69% of residents that agree with having a medical dispensary in Pacific Grove, no location given, but only 50% that agreed with having a recreational dispensary in Pacific Grove. And there was no indication about where they would want to have that. Overwhelmingly, residents are saying we don't want to have one in downtown, yet that's what it's setting up to be. And so again, with those comments, I want to thank the board for the special meeting. There's a ton of stuff on your plate regarding the pandemic and just trying to get our kids educated. And now you've got this to have to deal with. So I appreciate you taking the onus on yourselves to push forward with the resolution against this. And you should be applauded for getting this turned around so quickly, given everything that's going on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those comments. Yeah, this is as important as all the other stuff that we're doing. So thank you for acknowledging that. Okay, next up is, it just says J.
Hi, this is Jung-Hwa. Sorry, I could
Hi.
redo that name. And
No problem.
I'm sorry, there's another meeting going on soon for the candidates forum in PG, so I'll be logging off soon. Thank you so much for supporting this cannabis dispensary opposition. With regards to everything that was said before and for sharing personal stories as well as wisdom and experience regarding the need for due process and to represent people correctly, that is citizens, with regards to people who voted to okay medical cannabis and to prevent the school to prison pipeline and the other issues that are associated with politics around marijuana, not to have cannabis dispensaries near our daycare centers, childcare facilities, and schools. It's a small town. We need to protect our youth and the most vulnerable in the brains of all of our, students. So thank you so much for your work during this busy time.
Thank you. Thank you for being here as well. I just want to make a note that I see our fourth trustee, Christy Dawson. And Christy, we do want to hear what you have to say. Hi. I'm going to take public comment is still open, but I'm going to take one more and then we're going to come back to the board so Christy can talk about her side of this. And then we'll go back to public comment if there's any. Okay, next up is Wendy Giles.
Good evening.
Hi.
I want to thank the board for calling this special meeting, and I support your position, and I really, really appreciate all the personal stories. As a business owner and parent, I'm in opposition at this time based on this proposal. I don't think it fits our community. I have spent a lot of time the last 2 weeks or so getting a lot of information from other communities. And at the very least, if something like this was to move forward after it was put on the ballot for all of us to vote on, it would take at least a year or so to really set it up correctly. So I don't see the hurry in it. I'm opposed to it. And again, I want to thank you all for taking the time to have this meeting in addition to everything else that's going on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just will point out that, and it does say that in the resolution that we're asking them to put it to a vote for the Pacific Grove residents, specifically for the dispensary. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna bring it back to the board. Christy, let me unmute you. You are right there. Should be able to unmute. There you go. Hi.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I had a little surgery today. I was told not to make any major decisions for 8 hours. So even though that's the instructions, I'm making a major decision. I think it's very important symbolically that we make a statement regarding the safety of our kids and the community. I understand through letters and things I'm reading that this is a foregone conclusion. But again, echoing what was said previously, I think it's imperative that we still make our voices heard. I also want to say that I think one of the issues that I care about tremendously is proximity to schools. And even though it is a small town, there are areas that might be implemented if we don't get our way that are not so close to our children and could still be accessed by the community, but wouldn't be flying in the face of young kids going home or going to school. So I'm so sorry I was late. I didn't know what day it was, but I'm here. And that's what I'd say at this time. And we'll follow along where we are. Thank you for seeing me.
Okay, thank you, Christy. So we had a discussion earlier regarding removing 2 paragraphs. Do you happen to have it in front of you? If not, I can ask Mr. Mejia to bring it back up on the screen.
Oh my gosh, I hate for you to have to do that for me. I know I don't have it. No.
Would you mind, Mr. Mejia, bring that up again? Thank you. The bottom of the first page of the resolution. Right there. So, so Christy, the resolution will read where it's the September 2nd and above, and then it will skip the next 2 paragraphs. The City Council has previously, and then it will start with American Lung Association.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
I think that's fine.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, it is back to the board. I just want to check here if we have any public comment. Public comment is still open if you have anything you want to say or ask. Board, we'll just, as always, we'll just, before we take a vote, we will discuss again if you have anything else to add, and I'll just go down the line. Christy, since you just spoke, I think we don't need to ask you.
Thank you so much. Continue on.
John Paff, I muted you earlier, so let me unmute you.
I'm good. I got it.
Okay, do you have
Are you
anything
hearing a lot of
further?
background noise? I apologize. No,
Not now.
I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, all right. And Brian, you have anything else?
Just one nitpicky thing again, and I might be wrong on this one, but can we look at page 4, paragraph 3, the second line and the word sits? Should that not be sit rather than sits?
Most of which sits inside the city limits of Pacific Grove. Sit is
Six
previous,
campuses, most
right?
of which sit inside the city.
Whereas the trustees of Pacific Grove Unified School District provides for the education and security of 1,963 students over 6 campuses, most of which sit inside the city limits of Pacific Grove. I think that makes sense. Dr. Porras, do you have an opinion on that?
I think he's right. I think it should not have an S. Most of which sit.
Sorry, Ralph, you were muted. I saw your lips, but didn't hear anything.
Yep, yes,
Okay.
that's correct. Yeah, we can remove the S.
Okay,
Sorry,
great.
I just can't look at that and not say something about it.
We'll do a second read over too to try to catch grammar as well, for sure. So
Yeah, and I do plan on, since my signature is on here, or will be on here, I do plan on reading a portion of this at the board, at the council meeting tomorrow. I won't read it all because I don't think I can do it in 3 minutes, but anyway, I want to make sure that we are represented there. But after all, that's why we're doing this. Okay, well, thank you all. Let me just make sure there's no other public comment. And with that said, do I have a motion?
There is a comment from Patrick.
Really?
it's in the chat box.
Oh.
I'm trying to search for Patrick on the.
I'm here.
Oh, Patrick, I see
There
you.
he's
Go ahead and
now.
speak.
Yeah, hi.
Go ahead.
Thank you for having this meeting. I am a property owner and resident of Pacific Grove since 1990. My family's been on the peninsula for many decades prior to that. And I seem to be the only person in the room who's speaking in favor of a dispensary being put in Pacific Grove in a safe place. Perhaps downtown, we have liquor stores throughout our wonderful town, and we seem to be able to tourist area. Excuse me, I'm speaking. And we seem to be able to manage that just fine. These dispensaries are very closely regulated. When people walk in the door, they usually have to pass a security guard. They're required to show proper identification before they can make any purchases. So I appreciate the concern. I'm a former teacher. I'm a psychoanalytic candidate. I'm also studying for my Master's of Social Work. So I understand the importance of keeping students safe, but I also look to parents to do that. And I also look to the school programs to teach our students the dangers of drug and alcohol consumption and use in such a way that they will be able to make good decisions, not only in junior high and high school, but when they graduate. So trusting that the school district is doing a good job, I would say that the resolution should not be approved, although I respect your all's full intention to approve it. And I would hope that, as Pacific Grove has been doing since the time that I've been there living and teaching, that we would be able to manage this as a community, as a town. We'd come together like we have on so many other occasions and support one another and be able to manage something that other cities on the peninsula and towns seem to be managing without too many problems. So thank you very much for the opportunity for hearing what I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And your comments. So I'm gonna just kind of speak slowly and pause for a minute because I want to make sure that I wasn't aware the chat was open, so that's why I didn't see Patrick's comment. And I prefer, if we can, to just have you raise your hand so we can see you. But like Patrick did is fine. but when I'm reading chat is not the best thing. So any other, I'm having a little technical difficulty here. Any other public comment? Okay. Did I see anything that I'm missing again? Just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Bring it back to the board for, do I have a motion?
Also move.
Okay, I will second. Okay, we have a motion to approve resolution 1060 by Brian Swanson and second by Debbie Crandall. And roll call vote, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Mandy, sorry. Let's pause for a second. Hey, Brian, would you mind amending your motion?
Yes, yeah, I'll
amend
move
it. Yeah.
for approval of the resolution with the suggested change by John Paff to remove those 2 paragraphs. And I don't have them right in front of me, but
we have them
I
noted
see
in the record.
you have them, right?
Yes. Yes.
Page 3, and I'm
That's page 3, second and third paragraph from the bottom.
Yes.
okay. So
They both start with although city council.
Correct.
Okay, so and then I will second that amended motion. Now, sorry, Mandy, roll call, please.
Trustee Crandall?
Aye.
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Student advisory?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That passes 4-0. We appreciate the support from everyone. And we'll see what happens tomorrow at the council meeting. They will be discussing the location as well. So that's important to chime in for that, or tune in for that, excuse me. Tune in for that to hear what's going to happen. If it passes tomorrow, it will continue on. I believe the leases, applications go out after that. If it does not pass, then we will not be talking about this for a while. Okay, and that is our special meeting. We only had the one item, and that is completed. So, meeting is adjourned. And thank you again for everyone being here.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Debbie.
everybody.